And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to stage, and I have the big honor to present you one of my personally dearest friends in the co-living industry, and one, I think, of the most brilliant minds, Matt Lesniak.
Thank you very much, Guy.
Yes.
Happy to be here on the main stage.
Oh, yes. Well, as you see, you're leading it already, so I'm just going to move away.
All right. Thank you very much, Guy.
See you in a bit.
And hello to our panelists as well. I'll just be here to moderate. I see Jack and Fanyu is up on the stage or up on the screen. And we'll also be joined by Alicia, who is here as well. So welcome and thanks for joining us today. And yeah, this is a really interesting panel. Today we'll be talking about major organizations coming to into co-living, or their opinions on the co-living sector. And these are representatives from the organizations that Guy had mentioned earlier. So ULI, World Economic Forum, and UN Habitat. They also have their own initiatives within the co-living sector and the real estate sector, which I'll let them introduce. But some really interesting kind of prefab projects with Fluxus and Fanyu, and as well Alicia working at Urban Campus, and finally Jack working at Generation Global. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll go into a round of discussion and questions. So I'll just go from my screen. Fanyu, would you like to present yourself?
Thank you, Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Yep, thank you.
Wonderful to be here with everyone. I'm very passionate about providing homes for the world, and currently I serve on the World Economic Forum's Council on the Connected World and the forum's real estate task force. And as Matt mentioned, I'm also the CEO of Fluxus. It's a construction technology company and social enterprise committed to improving quality of life through a new way of delivering affordable, sustainable, and smart homes. And last year, I initiated the World Home Foundation, where we are building a digital platform to harmonize universal ESG metrics for urban affordable housing sector. And lastly, I just joined the Bloomberg New Economy Forum, the Cities Council, as a founding member, where we are focusing on the right metrics to evaluate and foster livability in cities and explore technologies and investment vehicles that will meaningfully improve livability in the cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanyu. Yeah, really inspiring resume, and a lot of really cool projects you're working on. We'll dive into a few of those in a little bit. Alicia, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sounds good, yep.
So thank you. Yeah, my name is Alicia Regodon, and I belong to the Land, Housing and Shelter Department of UN Habitat. This is part of the Global Division. So we work transversely in developing and promoting sustainable housing, or what we mean adequate housing for all. So this is across the sector. And I collaborate in the co-living industry, and where I come from, as well as Urban Campus, a European practice based in Paris and Madrid that develops very interesting, as you all know, co-living solutions. And yeah, apart from that, thank you for the invitation, and hope we can bring insightful ideas into the table.
Nice, thank you very much, Alicia. And yeah, Alicia's part of some interesting design projects with Urban Campus, and who is also a nominee. They had a few nominations for the Co-Living Awards, which will be held tomorrow. So we'll find out more about the winners tomorrow, which will be cool. And then finally, Jack, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, Matt, and hello from Copenhagen. So my name is Jack Rentiera, and I'm the principal of a company called Generation Global. Generation Global is kind of a conceptual development consultancy for future living concepts. We work with investors and developers on a number of different levels, from implementing of co-living into their portfolios, or concept development within co-living, and all of the supporting research that goes with it, which can include focus groups and lease-up strategies. Today, however, I'm representing Urban Land Institute, and ULI is the largest network in the world for real estate professionals. It started in 1936, and the focus is the responsible use of land. It has nearly 45,000 members that are comprised of real estate investors, developers, architects, urban planners, municipal leaders, academics, and we put a special emphasis on attracting students as well. So throughout its history, ULI has always kind of set the bar really high in terms of excellence in development, but also pushing the agenda when it comes to innovation. What is new? What are emerging trends that are coming around? And so I remember when I first joined in 2014, I thought to myself, this is so interesting. We actually hear about new trends happening now here through ULI, and then I read about them a month later. So it's always been a very exciting forum for me to be part of. And Matt, I've got to say thank you very much for having us here. We've really taken note of CoLiv, and all of the programming that you've been doing along with Guy has been very exciting and inspiring for our members.
Fantastic, thanks, Jack. And yeah, ULI is obviously an inspiration of ours as well. Similar sort of industry groups, and really, ULI and CoLiv do a really great approach. Have a really great approach of connecting individuals, industry experts, and sharing resources. So definitely great inspiration for us as well. So yeah, I mean, this panel is quite interesting for all of us. For me, especially as we work in the housing sector, we work in the real estate sector, we work in the residential real estate sector, and housing is really, in the end, a fundamental human need, just as access to clean water and healthy food is. So we have quite a big responsibility working in this housing sector, and it's just really interesting to hear what these major organizations around the world that have quite big impact, what is their perspective of innovative housing, and how does co-living fit into that? So that's what we're going to get into during this panel. And yeah, I guess we can just kind of start with asking you guys just that. What is your organization's view or approach or perspective on innovative housing? And does co-living come up often, or do other forms of housing also come up? What is kind of at the leading edge of innovative housing these days? So I guess let's go the other way around. Jack, you can start this time.
Well, thanks. It's a very interesting question because, like, last February, ULI in Europe decided to try something as a bit of an experiment. They suggested hosting a Living Concepts Forum as part of the annual ULI conference in Amsterdam. And so while ULI already had a residential council, it thought, well, there's so many new concepts that are coming out that it maybe warrants its own forum. And so we put out a little signal that we were going to put out this forum, and almost immediately the event was oversubscribed. And there was a wide representation of pension funds, investors, operators, developers, and even municipal leaders that came wanting to understand what is co-living. And it really went to show how the moment is now for thinking about how we will live in the future. Everyone wanted to get a better understanding of, what is this new asset class? And one particular comment that I really won't forget was the head of real estate for one of the largest pension funds in Europe, who basically put up her hand and said, I need a definition to take to my board. And I thought that kind of said it all. Like, we need to start discussing new living concepts, and especially how co-living fits into the way we invest in and develop real estate. And so I'm happy that as a result, ULI has kind of come up with two initiatives. One is that it's formally established a new product council specifically for living concepts. And my co-chair on that is Pavlos Genimatas, who is the managing director for European Living at Heinz. And then the second thing that they're doing is actually doing a co-living best practice guide that is for our members, that is basically a how-to on co-living and all of the factors to consider in the investment and development of this asset class. So I'm happy to see that a lot of our members are starting to realize that they need to jump into this. They need to learn as much as they can about it. Because as I mentioned earlier, like, co-living really requires us to step into a new set of shoes, to learn about a new demographic that wants to live in another way. And if we as real estate professionals don't provide it for them, then they will find and develop it for themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, I mean, this question, what is co-living, is obviously a big one for us, and it's something we've been working on for the last few years. I'm just wondering, has ULI come up with anything, or is there any sort of broad definition that you have come up with so far?
Well, I think within the Living Concepts Product Council, what we're doing is we are kind of talking about co-living in several different ways. We're talking about co-living, build to rent, student, we're talking about age-qualified housing, because there are many similarities with all of these. And so there isn't, we kind of like to say that, you know, co-living is an evolving kind of label. It can adapt and it will continue to evolve. Next year, it might mean something even more different because it is kind of ironing out all of the wrinkles and kind of coming into its own now as an asset class.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. That's how we think of it a lot as well, as this sort of shared living umbrella. And then within the shared living umbrella sits BTR, senior housing, PBSA, even cooperative or co-housing, so more sort of autonomous models, and obviously co-living as well, which is kind of this third-party service provider model that provides community and different amenities, but definitely has a lot to learn from its cousins and aunts and uncles and PBSA and built to rent and all these other kind of sister sectors. So yeah, thank you, Jack. Maybe we can hear from Alicia as well, working at UN Habitat and also doing a lot of interesting work on sustainability and embedding the UN SDGs into the housing sector. And I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Thank you, Matt. So, as you know, UN Habitat is a global organization. So for us, we have the saying that a house is not a roof. So coming from this idea that a house is not a roof, I would recommend you all to watch a documentary that was released in 2020 from UN Habitat and IKEA called The Human Shelter. Well, we can see humans and communities have very, very different ways of living, and not only of living, but of of identifying themselves with a home. But the commonality, I would say, is how they understand community as well. So this would be, I would think this would be the main trigger and the main relationship with the co-living that I believe is an alive incubator of curious minds. So places where people find ways to challenge the status quo and the way we live and find new ways of approaching this community. So departing from this, that's very different ways of understanding a house and therefore a home, and that communities around the world find different ways of building their homes and as well of identifying themselves with the communities. We also have to, I think, confront the idea of co-living as being just a densification of space. So I think it would be a mistake just to reduce it to that. And it would be much more than that. So from UN Habitat, as I was saying, we don't target only co-living. We place co-living under the umbrella of housing and an innovative solution for housing that's evolving in different parts of the world. And regarding to that, as you were saying, we face it regarding new ways of living, new ways of shaping community, and as well regarding sustainability in the three pillars of UN Habitat that are affordability, financial, economic, and social. So what I was trying to say is that there's not a single way of seeing it. It is a concept that is evolving, and for that it will need to be it will need for more regulation to be stronger in the housing sector, and we will see it evolve across countries and Hello?
Yes, I think we're back. Yep, all good. Were you finished sharing? Sorry, there was a little cut there.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I didn't see the cut.
Oh, okay. No, there's just a little lag at the end there. So, Did you want to finish anything else or share anything else?
No, I didn't see the cut, sorry, but I think it's fine.
Okay, sounds good. No, thank you for sharing those thoughts. Yeah, I think this thing about housing not just being a roof, co-living not just being a roof, is really at the core of this shared living model, and community obviously being at the core of this as well, being the sort of the bread and butter of the model. So I think that's one of the key differentiators or drivers of these new innovative forms of housing is being user-centric, experience-centric, community-centric, and then designing your spaces around that. So it seems like there's a lot of alignment on the panel on that. Fanyu, would you like to share a little bit about the Council of the Connected World at the World Economic Forum, which is a pretty sweet-sounding forum?
Yes, sure. I love the previous speakers. Jack was explained it from a development asset class lens, and Alicia is more like a humanitarian, social oriented. And I think the forum I'm on at the World Economic Forum is more from a technology governance point of view. So the Council on the Connected World formerly was named the Global IoT Council, Internet of Things Council. But now we expand, after 1 year of work, we expand the concept into connected world, because we see the future is all interconnected, whether from a technology point of view or a new way of living. Co-living really expressed the notion of we're all sharing the willingness to share the living experience, either from a development point of view or architecture point of view or technology point of view, as a digital infrastructure that supports the new way of living. So the council is really, it's formed initially in 2019 to strengthen the global governance and innovation of IoT and related technologies, including smart home applications in a variety of asset class throughout the real estate industry, and to maximize the positive benefit and minimize the harm for all society. That's the forum's council's mission. And we published a report and developed the global action plan, and recently a roadmap to taking the most critical challenges identified in the report. I can share the link later, and then transform them into 5 actions to mobilize the international community around the world. In short, the 5 areas of actions are, first is increasing education, and second is improving security. Third is driving positive impact. The fourth is combating equality. And fifth is strengthening collaboration. So for housing, for innovative housing solutions in action 4, combating inequality, to elaborate it is to, the action is to accelerate adoption of connected devices and systems, including smart home applications among small or undersourced, underserved enterprises and communities. So in this action, every action, we collect many global initiatives from related members of the forum and a broader community. In this action 4, we have initiatives that addressed how to leverage data from the connected homes to aggregate social, economic, and environmental benefits, and generate insight for new financial models, which will de-risk investment and incentives to build smart and sustainable housing. And we recognize we have to be careful about connected technologies, public and private deployment, because low-income neighborhoods might not get the same support as high-income neighborhood or development project. But we do see the opportunity to leverage the massive amount of new way of housing, including co-living, this new type of asset class that's yet to be defined. The critical mass is there, so we can leverage the innovation and technology that's available in private development and to accelerate in a substantial, impactful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanyu. Yeah, what resonated was this case study with Google, another major organization that was diving into urban development with their Sidewalk Labs project, and this adoption of technology, this adoption of public and private intellectual property and privacy rights was definitely something that was at the forefront of that project, and at the moment, I believe it's halted or even been disbanded. So. This question about connected homes, about the role of technology in co-living and real estate is a really huge question, and there are a lot of different angles from the construction side of things all the way through to operations. So Fanyu also contributed to one of the latest editions of Co-Living Insights about co-tech, innovating technology, or innovating co-living with technology, a really interesting piece about more on the context, the construction technology side of things. So yeah, maybe you can get into that in a little bit. Yeah, maybe we can get into another question as well, which is you've already touched on it already, around the different kinds of ways your organizations are embedding impact and sustainability into your work streams, into your action plans, as you were talking about for the World Economic Forum. And how can co-living sort of fit into that, and what are the benefits of co-living? What are the social, environmental, social benefits of co-living that may align with these visions and with these strategies of your organizations? So maybe we can start with Alicia.
So the main way, well, as you know, UN Habitat develops the SDGs to foster a global framework towards sustainable development. So these are cross-cutting goals that are, well, I would identify, for example, co-living mainly with SDG 11, which is sustainable cities, but as well SDG 12 and 13 that target sustainable consumption and production and climate change. For example, are the latest ones that we are working in a project on resource efficient housing that is being targeted globally and fosters. So we found the gap mainly in relating how the countries have access to legislation, regulations, and for example, building codes, policy. All of this has a very different level. So we can find countries, for example, Spain or France in Europe that have everything established and stakeholder groups, and you can find everything. But on the other hand, we have other countries where are not as developed in this target. So what we're trying to do is provide a global advocacy package that aligns all these policies, building scopes, building codes, and different resources for countries to build their own roadmaps. So we are building these sustainable roadmaps, not only UN Habitat, but together with UNEP, that is the environmental program. And these programs are a 50 years roadmap that gives the steps on how to pursue on housing in all of the different aspects, as we were saying, not only green housing, but sustainability as a whole, even how to building parameters, habitability needs, measures, and programs. It would be like guidelines on how to pursue. And we are cross-cutting that with value assessment tools for sustainable housing. So this can seem complicated, and for example, for Europe would be complicated, but think of other countries where all of the building code is not that developed. They could do like a jump. No, it's like overtaking. I'm not going to build all building codes, but I'm going to overtake and pursue, for example, sustainable practices, measure with CO2 emissions, use our local sources and materials, because a lot of the countries, for example, have problems in importing materials or natural resources. So this is a global program that we are developing, gathering sustainable housing. And as we say, co-living and community within our division, actually, we also integrate it through participatory projects and programs. So when UN Habitat develops a housing program, it is always participatory with the community, and it also integrates the whole the whole skills and capacity building of the population. So with this, they also build their own community spaces, they shape their houses together, and they also build their own part of communities as well, which I think it's very interesting. And that would be globally. And then we have the innovation section, which is led by another team, and as well is working on super interesting innovative and sustainable programs around the section together with the cities. So building co-living and other types of sustainable houses within the cities as well.
Okay, that sounds great. I look forward to seeing more about this, these regulations and these codes. I think that's really what the co-living sector needs at the moment is clear regulation, clear policies around what is co-living. And there are a few cities defining these things already. London has its policy H18, which has been defined by with different industry bodies, including the collective and other co-living operators and real estate specialists. So this is really one of the most important things in terms of like accessibility and democratizing co-living. And I think the UN Habitat is very rightly placed to do that. So we look forward to seeing where that goes, and if any of us here, ULI, Co-Liv, World Economic Forum can support, we'd love to. So yeah, I'm not sure, Jack, if I believe you may be doing some similar initiatives or some kind of regulation, and with the Product Council and the Living Concept Guide, you were also talking about having these kind of standardizations. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and how co-living fits into it, how impact, sustainability fit into that.
Sure. First of all, I've got to say the comments from my fellow panelists are really super interesting. And as Fanyu said, there's three very different, very clear perspectives on co-living that we're talking about here. And yet they're all kind of interconnected. I used to say that co-living is a new asset class that was born into technology. But even more true, I think, is that it's been born into an age where sustainability and social impact are maybe even more important than ever, and especially for this demographic. So our Living Concepts Product Council has been really trying to explore issues of sustainability and social impact. We asked someone named Aimee Tobari, a very well-known social value strategist, to talk about developing social value strategies and embedding them into key decision-making in the investment, development, and management of the buildings and places. And so she's done kind of this deep dive with ULI in general and with the Product Council members to outline a roadmap for bringing not only sustainability, but social value into new living concepts. And I mean, I think within this forum, that sounds like a given. That sounds something very normal. But I've got to stress that, for many investors and developers, this is a new way of thinking, to actually understand that you can create greater value by looking at social impact. So of course we're looking at all sorts of things in sustainability, like absorbing carbon and filtering pollutants and aiming to lower the temperature within our cities. But what is even more exciting is starting to think, how do we improve the wellness of the tenants or of the people that live and work in these places? And how do we establish new KPIs, like measuring how communities flourish? This was a very new word for a lot of people in our product council. And when we're talking about flourishing, we're talking about how do people come to trust the new developments that we are creating? How do we embed safety? Or how do we implement measures to reduce loneliness? And so we're now thinking about a whole new way of measuring the success of a building. And the reality is that success, even though it has to do with loneliness or wellness of our tenants, it actually also translates into the bottom line. It actually comes into how popular as a building will it be? How many people will it attract? Who will want to live there? And then to come back to your point, Matt, regulatory frameworks are also starting to embed some of this as criteria for giving land use permissions for co-living. And exactly the H18, which I think is a super model. I've been actually trying to promote that here in Copenhagen, because what it does is it actually says, well, you know what? Maybe you need to kind of put in place some initiatives within your planning proposal for how you will interact with the neighborhood. How are you going to invite them into your building? How are your residents going to do some social initiatives within the neighborhood? And I love that because it's never been like that before. It's always been, are you going to plant a tree, or are you going to put a driveway through? So I think we're starting to look more at bringing in truly social, truly interesting social impact criteria into the development of co-living.
What I love about what you're saying is that you're not the first person to talk about this during today, and it just inspires me that so many people in the past panels are talking about that, and I think in future panels this next day we'll also talk about that. Actually, right before this panel that I moderated, we were hosting a workshop on social value and co-living with my colleague at Penny Clark at Conscious Co-Living, and Amy Tobari was one of the panelists or the guest speakers. So she gave some nice insights into what's her thoughts are on social value and co-living, and we did a nice little breakout room, a kind of interactive session where we did some interactive digital sticky notes about what social value means to people. So hopefully we'll be able to share that as well at the end of these sessions. But yeah, totally agree. I mean, I always say you got to measure what you treasure at this stage. I'm a bit of a broken record. I say it at every panel I talk, but it's really important. And these kind of new KPIs, these new ways to embed these strategies into your corporate social responsibility, but not just even just your brand as a whole, and embedding it to all of your processes, your designs, your operations, how you treat your staff, how you treat your residents is more than important. So. Fanyu, do you want to kind of put a little cherry on the cake and share your thoughts as well?
Yes, I can mention the work within the forum's Future of Real Estate task force. So we just published a framework. It's called the Framework for the Future of Real Estate. And in the housing sector, there are 4 pillars: affordability, livability, sustainability, and resilience. So since you are initially asking about sustainability, I think that definition in this report about sustainability is focusing on the environmental aspect by supporting decarbonization and making certain energy efficiency. We believe it's not a trade-off of affordability. It can be a win-win situation if we choose the right method. And to elaborate on that, for example, decarbonization, the building block, means addressing the residential real estate, especially as it relates to retrofitting existing buildings. And 3 focus areas are critical to decreasing emissions. The first one is increased efficiency. Efficiency targets on the like a measurement aimed at decreasing the energy requires of buildings while remaining the same level of quantity. Superior thermal envelopes, highly efficient hardware like LED lighting, and many other examples, and passive ventilation and smart systems, digital solutions to optimize units' energy demand, such as the smart tech that IoT for occupancy sensors, just to learn about the community, learn about the habit of the users, and at the same time giving them the trust, the transparency. So it's not to gather data for monetize it for the business, for the technology providers, but rather to incorporate the co-living, not only co-living with people, but co-living with technology that can benefit our wellness, our health. There's a very interesting discussion about this from this task force. We identified this 4 pillars, but really to put it into practice, businesses, landlords, investors, asset managers is looking to really extract the value of applying those technology. Everybody knows the new digital solutions will bring certain benefits. In the long run, it might be a really good return on investment. But in the short run, how to align how to find the alignment between different stakeholders, stakeholders including the most important end users in the co-living environments, those people, those community willing to or choose to living this way because it's affordable, it's sustainable, and it's promotes a sense of belonging. Like Jack said, really a lot of invisible suffering we are becoming more and more aware. So the alignment, we did a survey within the task force and wider community. Energy efficiency, which is sustainability, actually is at the top of alignment because it's measurable. It's easier to measure the environmental impact based on the reduction of the emissions, but it's harder to measure other very important like wellness, social value, community engagement. Those are, I think UK is a leading country. You guys already have a regulatory framework, the Social Value Act, long time ago. And within the housing community, people are implementing it. Within co-living, a subtopic of housing is also implementing it as a vertical approach. I think that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, this kind of social value frameworks, these roadmaps that ULI have created are really, really important resources, and I definitely recommend all of the audience to look into those. And yeah, I think something that resonated that you said was around this sort of stakeholder-centric approach, and I'm really interested in that as well. Like, how can we create stakeholder-centric co-living spaces that act as neighborhood hubs that really think about all their stakeholders throughout the supply chains, from their staff, their construction workers, the local neighbors, the residents themselves, and even on the city and regional level. So I think this stakeholder approach is really part of, or at the center of the innovative housing reform, let's call it. So I'm just wary of time. I'm not sure if there's been any major questions that were asked for Q&A. I have some other questions as well, but I'd rather have the audience ask them. Yep. One second. We have I have my co-moderator gonna ask some questions from the audience.
I have a question from the audience, actually. It is Chris from Kozo Design Branding Studio that just asked, do you think that brands now are really focusing on sustainability, or they are surfing the wave of what sustainability can do for their image?
Aha. Sustainability washing, community washing, impact washing, a big risk. What do you guys think?
Well, I think we live in an era now that if you're going to fake, you're going to be found out. This is a demographic that really holds certain values to heart. And if your brand isn't doing it right, it's just not going to work. One of the things that I remember hearing was it was a very, very conservative fund. I won't say from where, but they tried their hand at developing a co-living building, but it had no community. They put zero resources into developing a community platform. And then they came afterwards and they said, well, you know, we put in this space for like a TV and kind of a living room area where people could get together, and nobody's using it. It's just dead space. And the fact is, like, nobody even wanted to live in that building because it had no community. It had no sense of identity. And that's what is going to be really important. So you can have all of, you can have all of the resources and construct whatever you want, but if you don't put together all of these magic elements of what a true co-living community is, it won't work. And I think sustainability is just one of those magic ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, consumers are going to vote with their pockets and their wallets, and if they see that the project isn't aligned with their values, they're going to go elsewhere. And the co-living market is getting bigger and bigger, so innovation within sustainability, well-being, community, social value is super important. I don't know if Fanyu or Alicia, you want to say something?
Yeah, well, first, before the question, thank you. I really am fascinated by Fanyu and Jack's ideas on KPIs, on measuring. It's more than the numbers. I think it's finding what to measure, no? What the community cares about, what people care about. That's regarding the KPIs, and I completely agree on your points. And regarding if sustainability is a trending topic, which I think it is a trending topic, but we have to see the global perspective. So this, I had prepared a slide, but I don't have time to share it, so I'll just show. So if we see global numbers, 50% of the building stock needed by 2050 is yet to be built. So it's still to be built. But where, if we think where, we probably like think it would be row up, so Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. But if we now narrow the target to Europe, we have the opposite. We have that 75% of the building stock for 2050 is already being built. What are we going to work on this 30 years? It's going to be mostly upgrading and improving the housing stock that we have. And that is like, if we think of a business, it's like a cake. It's a cake where we had a lot of companies working on building new housing before because it was needed in Europe. But now they're going to work on upgrading and standardizing. And there's where the building codes come and climate change comes. And this is where we're going to see all the sector moving very quickly towards upgrading the building stock that we have if we think of, for example, Europe. And we are seeing, as you were saying, London has super developed standard, and we are going to see it all across Europe with the new Green Deal as well, and Housing 2030, and a lot of other sectors. So I think it's a bit of both. It is a trending topic, but maybe that's not a bad thing. And we will, I think, as Jack was saying, we will have the measures to find out who is trying to cheat, no, hopefully.
Thank you, Alicia. Fanyu, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I see the branding part. We can see it in a very positive way, like Alicia mentioned. It's a powerful vehicle to harmonize the voice towards what's important, and it's become more and more embraced by mainstream financing. And last year, the World Economic Forum's Business Council come up with this framework for ESG reporting for businesses in general, not only for housing sector, but it's embraced by the 4 largest accounting firms, and a lot of big corporations has to report according to that framework. This is very positive. And for building cities and housing sector, we have many mechanisms to measure the sustainability aspect already. And I think it's a very good trend. It's where the world's supposed to go. And I'm very excited to hear Jack's organization, Urban Land Institute, is coming up with the definition first, because we really need standardized method, and then it can be transferred into the policy and transfer into the mechanism that businesses can align to, and this will be a differentiator among their peers. So the rising tide lifts all boats. That's what it's supposed to. There's always going to be criticism, but that shouldn't stop us from embracing the trend.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Fanyu, and thank you, Alicia and Jack. Totally agree on all those points. And I mean, when you see BlackRock as well, the largest private equity firm for the last few years, 2 or 3 years, putting that as well in the core of their agenda. Whether or not they're following through, that's another question. But that really shows where the priorities of investors, of consumers are, of staff are as well. If you're a co-living brand wanting to hire the top talent, you're gonna have to align with those values as well. And as a brand, a co-living brand, you're kind of sitting in the middle of all those things. So definitely needing to align on social, environmental, and economic impact. So thank you very, very much. I really found this panel to be one of the most fascinating ones, and you guys obviously have really interesting perspectives, not only from your own initiatives, but from the ULI, UN Habitat, and World Economic Forum. that's about all the time we have, is what I'm being told. So thank you again, and I recommend everyone to connect with these wonderful panelists as well. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Wow, 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 Matt. If you want, you can stay here for a bit.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, that was you're an amazing moderator. I was watching you and I was just like, wow, okay, like you guys have been juicing for a while, huh?
Maybe I learned it from you a little bit, you know.
I'm really curious. Like you've moderated a few panels today. You've been here. Like what was kind of some of your key highlights?
I mean, just what I was saying earlier, I'm really inspired that all these elements of social value, of social, environmental, economic impact are at the core of what co-living brands and businesses, whether they're designers or operators or developers, that they want to embed these into the core of what they're doing. So definitely something that I've been working on with a lot of passion for quite some time, and it's nice to see everyone on the same page.
Totally, totally. I'm really curious.